2025 exam revision session. This is the third or fourth year that we're doing this, and it is really, really exciting to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ben Taylor, and I'm going to be running you through this evening's broadcast, and really looking forward to, I can see that there's people already there involved, which is good, and writing some comments there, just making sure that everything's coming through the way that it needs to be. So if you can please just send me a comment just to say that everything's coming through and everything's working, that would be really appreciated. We are going to cover all three areas of last year's exam. So if you can download that through the VCAR website, that would be a really good idea to start. You can have that open there and ready there to go. What we need after that is for you guys to be taking notes, asking lots of questions. So as I've said there, please use the chat feature. Thank you, Misty. I can see that you've just said that everything's all good there, which is a nice little confirmation. So I will be sending through these slides to everyone. So I will put them, I'll put a link to download them in the description for this video. It's not quite there yet. If you look in the description, you'll see that it says something like, the slides to be uploaded, but I will put them up there so that you guys can download them and have a look. But please, by all means, after tonight, jump on the other YouTube videos that have been put up and ask lots of questions in them. Sort of reach out and let me know the sort of things that we can do to help you out. So what are we going to be heading towards tonight? Tonight we are looking at, obviously, the 2025 exam. We have 41 days. It was 6 weeks as of yesterday. Now, the reason why I bring that up is to say that really, when we've got 41 days, that's more time than what we think. And whilst I'm not going to go down to the nth degree and, tell you how many hours that is, and if we take away 8 hours every day for sleep, how many hours you've got to study and all those types of things. But we do need to be thinking, what are the things that I'm going to be doing over the next 41 days? I'm going to give you a whole range of advice that I've picked up from being on every side of this exam, whether it was when I was teaching my own Year 12 classes in the past, whether it was when I was a Year 12 coordinator, or my role in having marked the exams and seeing where things happen after the exam. I want you to be able to pick up on some tips tonight that are going to help you really fall into some really great habits. I'm going to talk to you about strategies and habits this evening, so that you can really dive in and give it your absolute best shot come October 28th. So you'll see a couple of these pop up throughout the presentation. We're going to start with a quick tip, and that is to ask you the question, what order should I complete the three pieces in? Now, the year after year after year, I have heard for years, and I still give this advice, that section C should be the first piece that you complete. The reason being that we need to start thinking about our reading time. The first 15 minutes that we are sitting down in that exam, we are not allowed to be holding a pen. We should be practicing this in our revision sessions, in our weekly study, in our daily study. We shouldn't be getting to the exam and be sitting there in reading time thinking, oh gosh, this is actually the first time I've sat and just read stuff when I haven't been able to write it. So the idea behind doing section C first is that obviously we've got somewhere between like 850 and 950 words of material there in section C. It is going to be much easier for us to come back to that when we are, having had just read it in the reading time that we've just had, rather than having to come back to it, say, 2 hours down the line. If we leave section C to last, it means that we're going to be tired, we're 2 hours in, and then we have to go back and think, oh gosh, can I actually remember all this material? I'm going to have to read it again. Just taking minutes that, we probably really don't have at that point. So that then leads to the question of, well, what do we do second? What should be the second piece that we put up there? And so for this, I really want you thinking about, well, which piece do I do the quickest? Which piece is going to be, the thing that I feel most confident with? And that's why writing practice pieces in timed conditions is just the ultimate. It's the best thing that you can do. It's not the only revision that you should do, but it should be what you are doing most of. Over these next 41 days, you have the ability to get stronger, to get better, to get faster, and to just generally feel much more confident with what sort of student you are when you're writing your Section A text response. What sort of student you are when you're writing your frameworks in Section B. What sort of student you are when you're writing a Section C piece. And so effective students who get the most out of themselves when it comes to those exams, are the ones who are going to be able to say, I'm going to be doing my Section B last because the last few times I've done it, I've been able to write a really comprehensive piece in like 54 minutes and I'm flying and I've got some really great ideas and I know that's the one that I feel really good about and I'm going to feel comfortable with it. That's a really great place for you to be. But as I've put there, the best plan is your plan. And if you were to come to me and to say, look, I've done all these practice pieces and I actually think that I'm going to do them in a different order to what you suggested. If you've done the work and you know that it's what works for you, then by all means, please go for it. That is what you're here to do over these next 41 days, is to start to really build some comfort around that with how you're going to deal with each of these sections of the exam. What you can see there on the screen at the moment is our planning sort of timeline that we have for the actual exam. Dead simple. We have 3 hours to write 3 pieces, but when we actually dive into it a little bit further, maybe it's not as simple as what we think, because when we say, okay, I've just got to be able to write every piece in 1 hour, well, what about planning time? How do we spend that time? Are we going to spend an exact hour on every single piece? Are there pieces that we can do a little bit quicker? Are there sections where we need a little more time than what some of the others might have? These are all the things that we need to start thinking about. I've got a slide later that talks about the importance of reading time, but I really do want you to think about this idea here in terms of this 9 o'clock to 9:15. The last thing that you want is to be sitting there in the exam and thinking to yourself, right, I am 5 minutes in with 43,000 other students doing this exam and already I'm falling behind because I don't really know what to do. You want to be thinking about how you're going to use your reading time and making sure that you've got the best possible way of doing it. If it was me, I'd be getting used to sort of looking at the Section A questions for 2, maybe 3 minutes, and I'd be planning and practicing the skill of sitting there and actually planning a question and planning my response without being able to hold a pen. I'd then be working on my ability to mentally plan a response for Section B, picking up on stuff in some of the stimulus material and thinking, oh, that's what I'm going to do as soon as I'm allowed to pick up my pen. Same thing for Section C. How can I read this piece maybe 2, hopefully even 2 and a bit times so that I've got a really good familiarity with it? Planning is a very, very personal thing. Now, this is a way that you might look to go about it. As you can see there, all I've added to the timeline is that at the start of each hour, you start on your new piece and you spend the first 2 minutes writing a quick plan or annotating it. That is how some people might like to go about it. Personally, I would want to make sure that I'm not getting to this stage 2 hours into the exam and thinking to myself, oh gosh, those great ideas that I had for my Section A essay, oh, that was 2 hours ago, and what was the quote and what was I going to say? What are these things? For me, that seems like a really clear way of sort of spinning out of control and feeling really overwhelmed. Instead, what I'd be really focused on is doing this and spending here. Now, I've written 10 minutes. It probably wouldn't even really take that long, but I'd be working towards being able to pick up my pen at 9:15 and spending, 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, and working on being able to annotate the Section C piece, being able to write a really quick plan for the other 2. That is what we need to be practicing over the next 40 days. You need to be looking at it in terms of how am I going to get myself really ready for that? Of course, what that means is your annotations for Section C don't have to be the world's prettiest highlighters with different color codes and everything like that. Nor does your plan for Section A have to be this beautiful roadmap with quotes and evidence and all sorts of things, topic sentences written out perfectly. If I was going to be doing it, knowing that all I'm writing the plan for is to jog my memory 1 hour or 2 hours down the line, all I'd be doing is probably putting my 3 dot points for what my topic sentences would be. Maybe writing the first word of a quote or two that I know are going to be able to really help me out and get to some deep analysis. Maybe making reference to some element of the text that I know is going to be really helpful in resolving the topic that I've been given. That's the type of thing that we need to get familiar with, and that's how we can really study with impact as we head towards it there. But bottom line, that is for you to jump in and to start thinking about. I'm going to take a really quick moment here just to look at a couple of the comments and so on that are coming. I'm seeing a lot of people saying hi to each other. Awesome. This makes a lot of sense. This is good. I'm seeing some laughing and some 100 emojis going. That's good. All right, I'm feeling old because I know that 6'7" is something, but I don't know what it is. So that's good that I can see people are commenting that. I'm glad people are seeing this and getting through really, really well with that. Please, if you do have any questions about anything that I've brought up, please make sure you put them there in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to them shortly. So, we're going to dive into section C. This will probably be the area that we'll spend the most time on of the 3 sections because, of course, all of you out there from different schools are doing different frameworks, different texts and everything like that. We're all doing the same section C material. I am really, really passionate about everything that I'm about to talk about because there is a fantastic opportunity there for you that you can jump into that is available to absolutely everyone. And it is the most basic meat and potatoes strategy that will work for absolutely everyone. And that is to be making sure that you download the previous 8 or 9 years of the exam, look at the section C material, complete a practice piece, and be really deliberate about the things that you see in that piece, and then do another one, and then do another one. And what you will begin to find after you've done 2 or 3 pieces is that there are certain things that are in common with these pieces that will allow you to always go deeper with your analysis and to be able to find more in them. Now, I'm not saying there's some sort of conspiracy or some sort of hack or secret like, oh, the 4th paragraph always has a this and the 8th paragraph's always a rebuttal or whatever it might be. But if we get strategic about looking at the way these things have been written, we can do a really great job in setting ourselves up for whatever this year might be. I'm not going to waste your time by talking about, oh, last year it was this and 2 years ago it was that. So this year it might be astronauts or, firefighters or something. I'm not worried about trying to guess what's going to be on the exam. I'm worried about making sure that I've done enough practice pieces and built some really good habits so that whatever they put on the exam, I'm ready for. So I've written there the last 6 or 7 years. I've even gone back to 2017 with some of the pieces that I've put up there for you. Now, the thing with the old study design is that the argument analysis material still stands up. It's still fine to use with one really clear note. What you'll see in some of the years, not all of them, but in some of the years there was a reply or something like that, a second writer. You don't need to worry about that. That's not going to be happening in this study design in these exams for these next however many years. So if you are dealing with one of those and you're thinking, whoa, there's a reply here. My teacher hasn't shown me anything like this. Don't panic. Analyze it if you want. All right, because that's what the students back then did. But don't think like, oh gosh, I've got to get ready for if there's a second piece or anything like that, because there won't be. The 4 things that I've put there are habits that you can apply to absolutely any section C piece. The first that I've written there, contention, saying, verse plus, purpose, doing. It is a major separator between students when it comes to section C. Students that struggle to get above that sort of middle range of marks in the exam are often writing only about the contention. And they're saying things like, Jones says. Jones opens with an anecdote. She then says. She continues on. She goes on to. One of the most simple audits you can do of your own work is to look at the word or phrase that you begin each of your body paragraphs with in your analysis material. Sometimes some students find that they've written like 6 short paragraphs and the author's name is the first word at the start of every single one of them. Now that doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be a terrible piece or anything like that. What that does mean though is that what we're looking at is an idea of as someone that's really just talking about what the what the writer is saying, not what the writer is doing. We want to be talking about what the writer is trying to do to this audience, how they are, getting into this piece, how they are moving their audience to feel certain ways, how they're creating certain feelings about things, how they're describing things in order to have an impact on that particular audience. We always want to be talking about the different ways that the argument is doing something to the reader. I'll show you some examples later. I've written there little picture, big picture. Make sure that you're doing both. Some students are really, really good at picking up on one-word quotes and three-word quotes and little things. Other students are really good at being able to pick up on the big overall arguments and the 3 or 4 big major arguments that are used. You want to be doing both. All right, you want to be talking about how those little quotes and those little things are actually indicative of much bigger arguments that are going on in the background. That student that can go in and out and zoom in, zoom out, little picture, big picture is the one that is looking comprehensively at all of the material. Next there, we've written analysis, not explanation. It can be really, really tempting. And students just get in that habit where they almost treat it like the assessor hasn't seen the material, particularly with the visuals, and they end up describing it. All right, you're not there to describe it. All right, the person who's marking your exam will have read this material many, many times. You don't need to be describing it. Analyzing the visual in depth is something else that we will take a look at. Now, this is all very basic stuff. All right, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I came here to get some really great advice and he's telling me, right, there will be written and visual language. Like, of course there will. But that's been said on purpose to try to get you to think, okay, what is it that I'm going to be seeing no matter what? There will be a writer and an audience. Really, really important. Now, I've said writer there. Sometimes it'll be a speaker. A couple of years ago, it was a small group of people, but you get what I mean when I say writer. We've got to focus on who that individual person is, or the small group, if it might be that again, and who their particular audience is. That is a major separator again between students who look at this material in like a robotic way where it's like they're scanning it for, persuasive techniques and like, oh, where's the statistics? Where's the inclusive language? Where's the rhetorical question? I've got to be able to find all these things because every argument impacts everybody the same, as opposed to a student that is looking at who is this particular audience? Who is this particular person? And what about the characteristics of each of those things are going to help me write a much deeper and more solid analysis? That is a huge major part of what we're looking to do here. So if we've got strategies for those things, we can train ourselves to view the material in a really, really effective way. What you are seeing now is the 2017 to 2019 pieces, okay? What I've put up there for you is something that I don't want you to overthink, right? It is something that I put together for some teachers a little while ago, and I thought, actually, this is really worthwhile showing to students as well. What I want you to focus on, however, is this column here, the audience, okay? Don't worry too much about the type, but I want you to worry about the audience. If you go and you download the 2017 English exam right now, which is, of course, very easy for you to do, and download the 2018, the 2019 one, and you go to the section C, what you will see is that in 2017, it was a primary school principal. That's who it was. This was the person. She was writing a letter in the school newsletter, a post on the school's website. And so therefore, the people she was writing for were parents of the children at this primary school. Principal, parents of the school. If we looked at it like a robot and went, oh, show me all the persuasive techniques, then we missed out on a tremendous human element where this was a leader of the school that was looking to portray herself as someone that was competent and daring and willing to take things on and providing a great education for these people's children. And she was purposely crafting her arguments, knowing that the parents that would be reading it are thinking, all right, what is this school that I'm sending my students, my children to? I care a lot about my kids and their education. How am I being impacted by this? Tremendous things happening there with who is this person, who is their particular audience. 2018, we had a person writing a review of a new coffee shop that opened up in town. He wrote in the newspaper, the local newspaper every month, and the people he wrote for were local people. All right, you'll see that word come up a lot. Now, I want to be really clear here. I'm not saying that, hey, that means that this year is definitely going to be a local issue, but if you do look back, at a lot of the times it is quite local like that. It was a local issue that people that he was talking about knew the street, they knew the other businesses in the street, and therefore there was a connection between who the person was, who the writer was. 2019, it was a supermarket manager, and she was writing for her customers, telling them that they were going to go cashless. So she's the manager and owner of the store, writing for people that she sees in her store every day. I think the point is getting across here that every one of those years, there was a particular audience. And if we have a focus on who is this particular audience this time, who are they and how are they going to be impacted based on those things, then we're going to be doing really, really well with the way that we head forward with it. We take a look at the 3 years after that, 2020 through to 2022. What I want you to focus on with this one, okay, again, you'll see locals in actually all of them, okay? Again, not saying that it definitely will be locals this year, but a lot of the times it's that smaller particular audience. What I want you to focus on is that the contention of the piece is never overly complex. Okay, as you can see there, for those 3 years, I can sum up the contention of the piece, or anyone could, in one sentence. In 2020, it was a farmer saying that we need to stop recreational drone flying over our farms. That was it. It was as simple as that. 2021, it was this local cinema, the marketing manager from that cinema saying, hey guys, if you don't come to our cinema, it's going to close forever. 2021 is one of my favorite Section C pieces, okay? Because of the fantastic way that it was on the surface, just a really simple, hey, I'm a marketing manager, I'm saying, if you don't come to our cinema, I'm putting this post out on like a Facebook local sort of a thing, and if you don't come to the cinema, we're gonna have to close, and that's it. A lot of students only focused on that, and they talked about all the reasons why that was true and why that was the case and all the different ways that she was arguing it. The students that did an improved job on the rest of those focused on these next two columns. They weren't just talking about the contention, they were talking about the purpose. What was she looking to do to that audience with the way that she was writing to them? As you can see there, I've emboldened 3 verbs, particularly the first 2. What she was looking to do was to celebrate the unique, beautiful building. All right, she's looking to celebrate with the locals, saying, how lucky are we that we've got this beautiful cinema, this beautiful theatre that we can all come to and enjoy. Then she was looking to caution the locals. She was saying, hey, guys, if you don't show up, it'll shut its doors forever. And she was cautioning them to say, hey, once this change starts, that's it. It ain't ever coming back, and we're going to lose something really special about this town. If you take a look over to the right, some of the more subtle things that she was doing, and I'd really encourage you to do this piece quite soon, is to look at, she was saying, the authenticity of the experience. She was saying that going to the cinema isn't just about watching the movie. It's about sitting in the comfortable seats, being with friends, going out and enjoying your life and having some sort of engaging, authentic experience. She was trying to also question the genuine connection to place that we get. If we just sit at home and eat takeaway food and eat Netflix, are we really living instead of if we go out? It's a fantastic piece to illustrate this point. I'm not going to go through the other 2 there, but what you'll see is that the clear contention is there for everyone. Now, we've got to think about how this piece is marked. All right, 2/3 of you are going to score a 4, a 5, a 6, or a 7. So they're going to make it pretty clear and basic for most people to be able to understand. But they're also going to throw in subtle arguments. And if you've done all of those previous year's pieces over these next 6 weeks, and you have seen how there's always a little subtle argument, and then you come back to these slides and you think, oh yeah, okay, yeah, he knew what he was talking about. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, okay, I get that. Then you are training yourself to view this material in such a deeper fashion. And that's where we really need to be with it. I'm going to take a really super quick break here at the moment just to take a look and see if there are any comments. I've realized before that I was looking at the background of YouTube while you guys could all see it. So, yep, I'm sure you've seen the background of that there, which is fine. What do we got? We've got a whole lot of comments. We haven't got any questions just yet, which is fine from what I can see. People talking to each other. Section C 2021 was pretty good. I'm glad to hear, Andrew. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Really, really good to see that people are having a fair old conversation in there. Do let me know if you have any questions that come up, and I'll be more than happy to help. That is really, really good. Let's keep going and take a look at what exactly we mean by what exactly is meant by this last year's section C, and how we go in doing it. So let's dive in and take a look. Let's jump there for both. So I'm not going to read for you word for word everything that was on last year's section C, but I am going to give you a couple of hints to give you a sense of how you could use last year's exam to really get yourself right for this year's exam. Some of you may have seen this material, some of you may have not. Of course, it is very accessible. It is downloadable if you download last year's exam from the VCAR website. Okay, last year, our local gym was a fitness centre and it was supported by a council subsidy, but the funding had been withdrawn. It says here in the background info, remember what the background info is for. It is not there for you just to copy and paste it to the start of your analysis to say, yeah, I got it, I get all the context. It's there for you to be able to pick up on, okay, what are these specifics? The gym committee called an emergency meeting for members of the gym. Ding, 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 ding. There is our audience. It is not the general public. It is not everyone. It is not gym goers, people interested in fitness and health. It is the members of our local gym. That is a specific little group, okay? And they're going to vote on a proposal. The chair of our local gym committee, Sandy Gestalt, presented the following speech. So the person speaking to them is known to them. She is the the chair of the committee. She's in charge of the committee. So there's our link between our person and our audience. This becomes huge because what she went on to say in this opening part, I will read you a part of this, but like I said, don't think, oh my gosh, he's going to read us every word of last year's section C material, but I am going to show you the start, okay? Thank you for attending this emergency meeting, she says, to vote on the future of our local gym. We find ourselves in an uncomfortable position, but as a group of people who have worked out together for years, we know that together we can save our local gym and ensure its future. Now, those robots that I spoke about before were looking at this and they're like, yes, the word we is used. Inclusive language, bang, tick, 1. Yes, it's inclusive, but we've got to be able to do more than just say that it's inclusive, all right? Yes, she's used the word we as a way of sort of rallying people, but we've got to make sure that we're not just saying that in general terms. Why would she be saying to them, we find ourselves in an uncomfortable position, but we have worked out together? When we consider the fact that she is one of them and she works out with them at the gym, it means that there is a shared experience and a shared bond to this particular place and that they have got through hard times before. She is reminding them of the bond that they have, not only with her, but with this place, as a way to have them appreciate how special this place is and how they have got through things before, and to provide some hope for them that they can get through that again. Now, everything that I've just said, imagine someone beginning their piece with that, as opposed to someone who says, Gestalt starts by using the word we 3 times, which is an example of inclusive language. She does this so that the audience feels included. We've got to do much more than that. Before we move on to possible solutions, I want to acknowledge the history and value of our local gym to both you, our members, and to the wider community. Now, a lot of students last year picked up on this idea of value. Oh, value, value, value. Great quote, and it is. All right, but we want to do a little bit more with it than just point out what it means. Our local gym has been in operation for 47 years. We built it from scratch with council support, fundraisers and fees from you, our members. We have for years been a safe space for all people. A lot of people picked up on safe space as well, which I can really see why. It's a really it stands out as a very deliberate language choice. And for young and young at heart, this space is where you have built your fitness, your strength, and your confidence. Again, the robot's going, oh, that's repetition of your. Why did she do that? Okay, why would she say what is she trying to do to these particular people when she's trying to have them really appreciate the many ways in which they have benefited from being at the gym, so therefore how they can give back to the gym? Then you're thinking specific. If you just say it's repetition, you're not really doing anything other than identifying. While larger commercial gyms have flourished, they cater for a different clientele. For people who are perhaps looking for a more competitive place to achieve their fitness goals, people who flock like moths to the flame to shiny new equipment, giant flat screen TVs, obnoxiously loud music. I'm going to stop there because again, when we're doing this activity, this particular, section C, this particular part of the exam, when we're only looking for surface things and just trying to find stuff that is like, oh, that's an example of that. A lot of times when people see a criticism, they'll say it's an attack, all right? And they don't actually think more about it. Because if we're actually thinking about, this is the chair of the gym committee speaking to other people from her gym, there's no reason for her to attack other gyms, all right? And to say, oh, they're all terrible. All right, so I'm going to show you what I mean by this because we've really got to think about the specifics here. So take a look at these two passages here in the slide. The one in red has explained those quotes that I mentioned: value, safe space, obnoxiously loud. It's not terrible. Okay, maybe I should choose a different color than red because I'm not saying no, never use it, it's awful, it's shocking. But it is an example of that sort of mid-range analysis that many of us do when we first get back into this. All right, and I'll show you why. Gestalt talks of how the gym. Now, straight away, I've got the verb that I'm using is talks, which is really not giving me anything specific. It's saying, well, she speaks about something. It's just kind of telling me what she's saying, not what she's doing, right? Of how the gym provides value for the community. This pushes the audience to see what they benefit from the gym and promotes positive feelings towards it. Now, that's not terrible, right? It's not great, but it's not terrible. It pushes the audience to see what they benefit from the gym. That is an analysis of argument and language. That is good. That's okay. Promotes positive feelings. All right. I like the language use there of promotes. Okay, positive feelings, I reckon we can be a little bit more specific. If you're really pushing yourself, I'd put a ban on the words positive or negative. All right, not to say that they're terrible words and that's not for everyone, but if you're really looking to push yourself, you can do better than positive. Positive is a way of saying, oh, it kind of just makes everyone feel good. All right, we can be more specific than that. By then referring to the gym as a safe space, members are made to think about how the gym provides people with an area where they can feel comfortable. So all of a sudden, all this piece is doing is saying, all right, she said safe space, and that makes people think that they can be comfortable. Really just explaining the quotes, not analysing them. Also, what's the deal with using this term made? Readers are made to think about it. If we're saying that readers are made to feel a certain way about an argument, we're basically just saying that everyone who reads it would feel the same. We're not being colourful with the way that we realise that human beings are different in the way that they all respond to these different arguments. This is seen as in contrast to the obnoxiously loud gyms that they could go to, an attack on the other facilities. Notice how that's just saying like, yeah, it's an attack, but nothing to do with why that would be effective for the particular audience that's there. Let's take a look at the better one here with the in green. A sense of inclusivity is created, as Gestalt describes the gym. So from the fourth word, I've got inclusivity. I've got a sense of inclusivity. So it's like, this is the impact that the argument's having. It's trying to create a sense of inclusivity. What I really like about that is that is a sentence structure that you can use over and over again, no matter which year or what material you're looking at. A sense of X is created as Y. All right, so you're thinking about, if you read this year's piece and for some reason they might go really hard and angry at the start, it might be a sense of dread and high anxiety is created as Taylor begins by confronting people or whatever. A sense of X is created. Created is a fantastic word to use. I'm also going to link to a sample piece that I've written for this piece last year. It's a bit of a thing for everyone who's jumped online. I'll put that in the description later as well. You'll notice that I use the word creates a lot of the time. It's a nice way of being able to talk about what the arguments do if we use it effectively. All right, we can say things like Gestalt creates an atmosphere, creates an environment, creates a sense of, creates a feeling. All right, it's that way of being able to say this is what the argument does to these people, what it creates for them. Locals are led. Might notice a difference there between making people do something. Locals are led to consider. It's gentle language that shows that she's trying to do these things, and that's what we're analysing. We're here to analyse the intended effect. They're led to feel this way, to consider the special and unique qualities of our local gym and its value to the community as a whole. All right, nice little quote there. It's embedded, it all flows, we're flying along. By commenting on the obnoxiously loud gyms in the area, this special quality is reinforced by Gestalt. Readers are encouraged, ding, 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 great verb, to understand the role that the gym plays, not just for them, but for the larger community. As such, Gestalt builds momentum behind a campaign that asks community members to consider others and the vital need for the facility, even if it requires some form of compromise. So I really want you not to just go, oh, cool, I've got a nice little sample of some work that I could do with that and see that. I want you to see the difference there, all right, between just explaining these pieces and really diving into it. I'll leave the rest of this here for you to take a look at. Obviously, you know where to find this on the VCAR website. I should have sourced that down the bottom there. I'll do that in the description. When it comes to the visuals that are used here, we have two different visuals. The second one's on your screen at the moment. Okay, we've got to think about the ways that we can use the visual language. First note that I've given you there, please don't describe the visual. A lot of times students will write things like, Gestalt has included two visuals. The first one is of a heart and a chocolate bar walking arm in arm, one giving the peace sign, and it says the words focus on the good. That's describing the picture, okay? Sometimes people explain the picture a little bit, like with the top one with the girl, doing the splits, saying, it's a girl engaged in activity whilst also eating a lollipop, which shows that the two things can go together. That's okay, but it feels like you're doing most of the analysis, but not the most important part. How is she trying to impact the audience there? Is it by trying to have them see this way of how they need to be flexible, about the balance that can be achieved, about the, cheeky nature, I wouldn't use the word cheeky, but that sort of mischievous nature of saying we can combine these two things, that there is joy in exercise and joy in sugary lollies, and that this is a world that we can create and be a part of. That's where we need to get with that. So my tip for you for analysing the visuals, treat them like arguments in terms of there's an overall sense of what they're trying to achieve, and then zoom in on the little elements, the specific elements within them. Some students last year focused on the sort of funky glasses that the girl's wearing. Of course, the lollipop. They focused not just on saying, oh, she's doing the splits, but it was that idea of symmetry and balance. All right. Some students picked up on the fact that the good is in a bigger font than focus. All right. It's that idea of this is what we want you focused on. This is where we want your attention. Forget the negatives, worry about the good stuff. Some people zoomed right in on the fact that they are taking the same step, that there are, little, the hand signals, the arm being around each other, the overall tone of that sort of retro feeling sort of ad about what they're trying to create here in terms of feelings and so on. Really, really important that we've got some language as well to be able to talk about how the argument shifts. If you are a student who is doing a pretty solid job of argument analysis, but you're getting frustrated because you're not getting absolute top marks all the time and you're thinking, well, what else do I need to do? This might be something that could help you out. What we want to see, particularly with these last few years where this has moved to argument analysis, is that the students that can do a really, really thorough and sophisticated job of this are able to talk about how the arguments move together, not treating it like the arguments are islands. The first argument is this. The second argument is that. The third argument is that. Students that just work chronologically through the piece, all right? It's not a rule to say that you can't do well if you do that. I've seen plenty of really good ones that do, but generally they tend to treat the arguments like they're these standalone things, and it doesn't really show that overall sort of holistic understanding of it. So I want you to challenge yourself to use words like having. It's a really simple word, but as a way of, at the start of a paragraph, saying something like that. Having pointed out the consequences of inaction, Gestalt implores her fellow members, and you can read the rest of it there. It's a way of saying that I get that she's done something and she's got people to feel a certain way, so she can now do something else to them. When I speak to students in schools about these things, I talk about it as like treating the audience like they're, sheep in a paddock, and then the border collie sort of gets them into the corner, the sheepdog, all right? And it's that way of saying, well, we got them into the corner so we could open the gate and move them into the next paddock. It's a little bit like that with the audience here. All right, we led them to feel this way and get them thinking this way about the gym. And when we've done that, we can now do that to them. Because writers do that all the time. That's why they present things in positive, negative lights, all right? You'll be more specific than I was just then, I'm sure. But they present things and describe things in certain ways so that they can get people to feel a certain way. And from there, they can then do something else. Another way that you can start to do that is to use language like that, with this established, or having established a sense of this, that, or the other. It's a great way of you subtly saying to the assessor, hey, I get how these arguments all work in conjunction with each other. And that is a really higher order skill that I'd encourage you to keep working on. Lastly, we're about to move away from argument analysis. We are looking at the verbs that are being used here. One of the first things I said to you tonight is that there's a huge separator in argument analysis between students that only focus on what the writer is saying and just the contention, and writers who really focus on what the argument is doing. Okay, and so if we're going to be talking about what the argument is doing, we've got to use doing words. All right, what I want you to notice about where these verbs have been emboldened is that throughout that, I think there's 5 sentences in that paragraph. Notice how they're layered, okay, in that this doesn't let up. Gestalt encourages her audience to do this, that, and the other, but also consider this. Next line, gym members are ultimately challenged to bend their values. It gets down the bottom, convince members to keep the spirit alive, fostering a sense of community, encourage members. If you take a look at that and you put it next to a paragraph where a student has just retold all the arguments and say, as a result, the reader will feel guilty, all right, you've got 5, 6 verbs about all the different ways that the argument's working versus one word of analysis. We know where we need to be with this. These are the slides from last year. I'm going to move through them extremely quickly, other than to say that you'll notice I've done the exact same thing. And this time last year, I sat here and I gave this presentation with these exact sort of slides and everything that goes and gets involved in them. And I want you to have a look at that and be able to use those things as well. What we are looking at here at the moment is one of the last things I'm going to say to you about section C. I would encourage you to, when you get these slides, to copy and paste this. If you are a really super organized person, you're the type of person who wants to copy and paste that into Canva and make it look pretty and everything, please go for your life. But what is happening here, I haven't put any dates on it because I'm not here to sort of say, right, by tomorrow you must do this and everything like that. But I would really encourage you, if you're serious about doing well on this exam, to have completed all of these pieces by the week of the exam, okay? What you'll notice with the reading time and the annotating time here is that they slowly decrease. If you were to wake up tomorrow or come home from school tomorrow and do the 2017 piece, I'd be saying, hey, 6 weeks out, give yourself a bit of time. Read the piece for 15 minutes without doing any annotating. Treat it like you've got all 15 minutes of reading time. Then give yourself 10 minutes to annotate the heck out of the piece. Then give yourself an hour and 15 minutes to write it. When you start working in these 1 hour windows, or in this case, a little bit longer than 1 hour, you are starting to engage in the best possible revision we can do, which is writing practice pieces, doing it to timed conditions and simulating the exam experience. For any of you that are out there that are like me, this will be your favorite column. Being able to put a big tick or a cross, or getting a ruler out and crossing out 2017 to say, right, done, getting something off the to-do list. This next one's pretty important. I want you to be able to take it to your teacher with, what questions do I have about it? Did I get this right? Could I have done this differently? Should I have done that well? Did this thing work well for me? And then another tick for when we've submitted it and sought feedback from our teacher. We then go and do the 2018 piece. We give ourselves a little less time. We then go and do the 2019. We give ourselves less writing time. And you can see as it decreases down here. Anytime you see an asterisk next to the year, that means that there is something that I have up on YouTube that will be able to help you out with it. Obviously, we've got tonight for the 2024 piece. You can look at last year's live stream if you really like, or the slides from tonight for 2023. There's even one for the 2022 one. Okay, you'll notice 2017 and 2019 are there as well. Now, I said to you before, 2017 and 2019 both have replies in them, okay, where there's a second writer, all right, and a second person. Please don't stress too much about that. Just analyze the argument like it's there, all right, but don't stress about, oh gosh, do I have to compare and do all these types of things? That's not what we're going to need to worry about. So maybe use this the YouTube clip of the 2017 one after you've done the piece and think, oh, actually, yeah, I could have picked up on that. Oh, okay, now I get it. He could have done that better. I could have done that better. After you've done that, maybe watch this 2019 one, then go and do the 2019 piece. Up to you, ways of you being able to do it. The main thing that I hope that helps with, though, is for you to be able to think, okay, this is, there's something else out there rather than just sitting down and doing these pieces in these 1 hour windows. So that's section C. That's by far the most time I'm going to spend on either of the sections. Like I said, it was the longest one there. So I'm just going to take a look to see what we have here in terms of questions. Seeing a lot of chat, and I'm seeing people that seem to be really, really enjoying themselves and talking to each other, which is excellent. Please, if you do have a question, let me know there. I'm trying to find them. Had my teacher say that we don't have to quote it, but then other teachers say that we have to. What we're talking about there, I'm not 100% sure. You don't have to quote anything, but quotes are always a great way of showing you exactly what you can get up to there. I can see Mickey has put in, how do we incorporate the stimulus into our writing in section B? Do you have to quote it? No, you don't have to quote the stimulus, and I will cover that very, very shortly. Gabe is pretty big on the caps lock there, which is good. Okay, very, very good. We'll see if any more questions, if any questions come up. So let's dive into section A and what we're going to be looking at here when it comes to it. There you go. I've showed you the YouTube thing again. Section A. Answer the question. This is going to be the main thing. If for some reason I had to zip this all up in the next 2 minutes and you said, yeah, but what should I do for section A? Work on as many different questions as possible. Be comfortable with the different ways they ask questions and make sure you are answering exactly what the question asks. Okay? Really, really important skill. Of course, there's no point in me going, oh, this skill's more important than that skill or anything like that. But out of these things, you showing your knowledge of the text and being able to write beautifully organized essays and everything else, of course, they are important. But if you're not answering the question, well, then, you're not even starting the race. You've got to be able to understand the different levels to which a question could be asked. I often say to students that if you really wanted to be a smart aleck about it and it says, do you agree or disagree? All right, of course, you could write one word, yes or no. All right, you'd probably get a 0 and, wouldn't go very far. But technically, yeah, you've answered the question. So that's a starting point. How do we answer the question in more depth than just saying, yes, I agree? That's something I'll show you there, as well as how we can show a knowledge of the text. So it's a skill like anything else. I've said to you that writing pieces in 1 hour windows is the best way you can spend your time. Also, with section A, a really great way of spending your time is to just plan deeply in response to questions and focus on the skill of, can I extract 3 really fantastic ideas that help me arrive at a really clear contention? If you're working on that, then, most of the essay is kind of written up here anyway. So focus on that as a skill and think about the different ways that you can be asked a question. I'm going to show you some more stats. This is from last year's exam. There are 40 questions in section A because there are 2 questions each and there are 20 texts. You don't need to worry about the other 18, even 19 texts other than the one that you are doing. But just to give you a sense of the ways that you might be asked questions. Last year, 14 out of the 40 questions had discuss as their command word. It is a very popular way of the question being put forward to students. So we need to make sure that we have strategies for dealing with that. Okay, in terms of, okay, what do I do when I get a discuss question? I'll answer that in a little moment as well. 15 asked whether or not you agreed, or to what extent do you agree? So if we add those together, we've got just under 3/4. We've got 29 out of the 40 questions being either discuss or do you agree or disagree, to what extent do you agree? 4 began with to what extent, and 7 asked how. Now that's a really, really key one. I don't want you to misinterpret why I'm showing you this, because I don't want you to go, oh, cool, well, I won't worry about how questions because there probably won't be one. That's not what I want you to get out of this. I want you to be looking at all of these things and thinking about the way that they're asked. 16 of the 40 put forward a proposition about a text. So what I mean by that is they propose something. They put forward a way of thinking about the text. For example, they say something like, the memory police shows how people will always give up on their freedoms if they are scared. Do you agree? Right? Not a great question, but you get the point. They propose something about the text and then ask if you agree, or something else that's around there. So you need to get used to dealing with, okay, what do I do when I have a statement put to me and then I'm asked a question about that statement? Because, the first thing we need to get used to there is that the VCAA are not going to put forward a statement that's rubbish. They're not going to put forward a statement that isn't valid or an interesting way of thinking about the text. So, of course, if we just go like, oh, yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, no, good statement. That's true. We're not doing a very good job. We've got to be able to arrive at a response to that shows how that's true, why that's true, to what extent it's true, ways that it might be challenged, but ultimately how we can come to see that, yeah, overall, this is the prevailing idea. That's the thinking. You'll notice my hands are going everywhere here. Bottom line, the main thing that will hold you in good stead for responding to questions is arriving at a point. I love using that language at the moment, arriving at a point, because it doesn't mean you just say, yep, it's true, there's nothing else to say. But it also means that you're not going off track and saying, oh, it could be this, it could be that, it could be all these things. It's that way of saying, look, there's a way of thinking about these. This statement can be challenged a little, but ultimately the prevailing thought is that, yep, this is how I feel about this question. You arrive at a point. Really good thing to try and think of. 5 used a quote as the basis for the question. 14 used a combination of those two things. So what's that altogether? 35 of the 40 questions had a quote, a proposition, or both. What do you do when you get given those questions? What strategies do you have? Really common question. Do I get asked, do I have to use the quote? You don't have to do anything. Is it a good idea to use a quote? Well, yeah, I'd say so. Maybe just use parts of it. But really use the quote in your thinking about the question. Don't just go, oh yeah, cool, they have to throw a quote in, so they did. They will have chosen that quote and taken great time and care to choose it, I can guarantee you, because they want you to colour the question with that quote. They want you to look at the quote and think about it and think, oh, okay, that really, shines a light on this question and shows me the ways that they want me to consider this text in this particular question. 5 were direct in asking the question, and a lot of times they were the how questions. Not always, though. So they're my ideas. Now, I always sort of cringe a little when I put this up because I know that different English teachers have different strategies for these things. In no way am I saying, right, this is it. No one else can think about this in any other way. Some teachers might have some slight disagreements with this, but generally speaking, when we say discuss, we're talking about arriving at a certain point in response to the question. Okay, if I have a meeting with someone and we say, oh, we're going to have a discussion about this issue, the idea of the meeting is that we resolve the issue. We discuss things, we throw a few ideas around, but we walk out of the meeting and we're like, yep, we've discussed it, and this is where we've arrived. We've got something that we've resolved from having that meeting. That's how I want you to think of a discuss question. They put an idea to you and they say, discuss. So the idea is that you think, well, okay, is that true? I'll think about it. I'll bring in some other ideas. I'll challenge it a little. I'll think about it. And then at the end, yeah, this is what I'm saying. That's how you should think of it. To what extent do you agree? Arriving at a point is, again, a really great way to do this one as well, because it's, again, a way of thinking, well, I could have thought that, but ultimately this is where I land. The word ultimately, or thus, or therefore, or as such, these sorts of terms are your best friend here, because it's your way of saying, this is where I arrive with this. This is my ultimate point. And that's what you want to be getting to. Do you agree? Really, really difficult for some students because they find themselves saying like, how do I show I agree without actually writing the word agree or I agree? Or how do I show that I get the statement without just rewriting the statement from the question over and over again? So you've got to be able to use synonyms from the statement that's been put to you, from the question that's been put to you. You've got to be able to find language that helps you talk about where you ultimately land with this without just saying things like I agree or anything like that. With the how questions, they are somewhat different from those top three. All right, they're all different from each other, but the how questions are on their own category. Because if it asks you how, that's hugely influential. If it says, how does Billy Wilder examine the artificiality of Hollywood or something like that, your answer can't be, oh yeah, Sunset Boulevard's about artificiality in Hollywood. That's not what they're asking. They're not saying, is it about it? They're saying, how does he do it? So you've got to be able to show great knowledge of construction of text. All right. So if you've done a how question, I want you to look at each of your paragraphs and your topic sentences and say, am I actually showing a knowledge of how this text has been put together? So obviously use previous questions. That's a no-brainer. But the main thing I want you to do is to be really active and deliberate in the way that you go about it. So the best way to be doing that is to take a look at the question and acknowledge what it is doing. Okay, it's proposing something and then it's asking a how question. All right, it starts with a quote and then a proposition and a discuss. That way you're thinking about all the different things that are being asked of you and you're being really particular about it. I don't want you to take this too far. The last thing I want is for students to overthink this way too much and be sitting there at 2 a.m. the night before the exam going, oh my gosh, what do I do if it's a discuss and not a do you agree? And okay, if you're focusing on arriving at that clear point and you're looking at all the terms in the question, you will be fine, I'm sure. If you've done the work and worked with it with your teacher, you will be okay, okay? Make sure you do as many practice pieces, discuss them with your teacher, and all those things will be covered. With that in mind, we're at quick tip number 4, create a feedback loop with your teacher. So set yourself a window of time to write a practice piece. I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later. Submit the resulting piece of work to your teacher. All right. You should feel good about the fact that you sat down for an hour and you've got these papers in your hand. You're like, yeah, I wrote this. Submit it to your teacher with a reasonable expectation of their time. Sometimes you might want to say, hey, rather than you taking this home and everything like that, do you perhaps have some time for me to sit down just for 10 minutes with you after you've read it? And you can just give me verbal feedback after having read it quickly. All right. Be reasonable with your teacher with these types of things. In saying that as well, with the sort of feedback that you want is the feedback that's going to help you take another baby step, all right, and another small step and another step and another step. So that means don't ask for, oh, I want you to tell me every spelling mistake and every incorrect sentence and everything like that. Give me 2 things that I need to work on the next time I do this type of piece. Take that post-it note home. Think to yourself, right, there's my goals for my next piece. Go and do the next piece. That's why we call it a loop, because we come back around and we repeat that all over again. That's where you need to be with this. If we're doing that, we're engaging in study that is always looking to get that little bit better every time. Now, don't expect if your teacher goes, look, this is sort of sitting as a 6 out of 10, that, all right, I'm going to go and write another one, and this one will be 7, and if I write another, it'll be an 8 and another. All right, gradual improvement happens gradually, right? We need to just keep working at it and keep doing these types of things. You want to be sitting there essentially the morning of the exam feeling really, really confident, basically because you have been able to say, well, I've done like 12 questions in the last 6 weeks. Today, I'll just go in there and write the 13th. That's where you want to be with this type of study, okay? Your knowledge of the texts, guys, is all about what you can say in terms of what is the author saying and how have they said it. Now, when I say author, of course, we can have director, playwright, poet. We want to see their surname all over the place. Now, as I've written there, it's not a hack. I'm not saying, oh, if you use the author's surname, it just automatically makes the assessors think it's good. The author or the playwright or whoever it might be, their surname comes up a lot in effective essays because that student is focused on bringing their analysis to messages and deeper concerns and values of the text being put forward by that particular person. And on top of that, and this can be a really big separator, analysis of how that person has constructed their text. the decisions they've made, the structural elements to the text that you can analyze that show that you understand not just what they were saying, but how they've put it together. Far too many students think, hey, if I just use heaps of quotes, I'm going to show that I know the text really well. Being able to tell me what happens in a text and being able to use a huge range of quotes is not showing me knowledge of the text. Being able to show that you understand the deeper concerns of what this author was trying to get across, being able to show that you understand why they've made particular decisions in terms of characterization or structure or whatever it might be in order to convey key ideas, that is knowledge of the text. So don't take that too far. I'm not saying quotes aren't worth it, all right? But quotes are only worth it if they're helping you say something insightful about what the author's trying to achieve. Otherwise, quotes for quote's sake may as well not be there. So have some language that you can fall back on, all right, all the time. What you'll notice with these, okay, and this is obviously for Oedipus, the king, and high ground, okay, for those of you that might be doing those. Of course, you can just replace the surnames there with your particular author, playwright, poet, director, okay. You'll notice that it goes name and verb. Johnson examines. Sophocles is critical of. Johnson criticizes. Sophocles laments, presents, celebrates. Verbs, verbs, verbs again. It means that you're saying something specific, not just Johnson explores the idea of racism. That's an exceptionally broad thing to say about a text. We need to be specific with what we're getting to there. Once we've got that down pat, we can ask ourselves, okay, how did they do it? Through Jocasta's logical arguments, Sophocles does this. By, doing whatever he might have done, Johnson examines. Sophocles' use of the allusions to the natural world. Notice how all of these sentences are set up in a way to just very briefly refer to the something that the author's done and then get to the analysis of it. You've got to make sure that you are not retelling the story here. And students sometimes do that when they say things like, this character, who is this character's wife, at about midway through the play says this when they are looking at this particular thing. Don't describe the play back or the text back to the examiner. Get straight to what is being said there. For some further help, okay, for most of the text, you'll be able to find that on YouTube. There are a bunch of things about meaningful quotes and sample paragraphs. Jump into those, ask lots of questions, and dive right in. I'd be more than happy to answer those questions over these next few weeks if you have them while you are there. So, taking a look, what I might do, I might just say, look, we'll wait until the end. If you have any really pertinent questions, we'll wait till the end, and I'll that way I won't be looking at slides and all those types of things. I will say, guys, if you're going back and forth and having arguments with each other, maybe, find somewhere else to do it. This is something that, you could probably do somewhere else. There's probably some people that are probably getting a bit frustrated because they want you to be able to, asking some questions about these types of things. So we'll dive in and we'll take a look at section B to finish off. All right, let's do this. Section B. Now, what you will notice if you are looking at these things for previous exams is that last year is going to be the only year of the exam that has Section B material that is relevant to you. And that's really important because it was the first year that Section B was examined this way on the exam. Before that, you'll notice that it was all comparative, a previous study design. What do we need to take from this? We have been told on this exam that students must use the title. I can't make this clearer because I've been going to lots of different schools and reading lots of different pieces, and students I don't think are understanding the importance of those words. You must use the title. It has been said, not by me, but by people at the VCAA and those examiners' reports and so on, that the title for Section B is to be treated like the question in Section A. So that brings up a couple of things. One, how do we work with the title? Well, we treat it a little bit like the question, okay? We've got a great knowledge of our areas, of our framework of ideas. We bring all those ideas that we have, we bring all of those different ways that we've written pieces, and we dive in and use all of them depending on what the title leads us to on the day. There is a lot of talk from students, and a really common question is, should I go in there and can I just regurgitate something that I've already pre-written? If you do that, you are more likely than not to write a piece that is doing a really horrible job with just trying to fit the title in. In saying that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't practice writing pieces and have particular things that you like to call upon. Like anything, you will have seen with the first two sections of Section C and Section A. What I've been saying is, have your sentence starters, have your sentence structures, have your particular phrases that work really well for you. Of course, have these types of things. With Section B, you can have particular structures and so on that work in certain things. But don't narrow your focus to, I'm writing a speech on this particular issue, no matter what the title is. That's not going to be an effective way to do it. At best, it's naive. At worst, it's arrogant. It's sort of showing up like, no matter what, I've got this brilliant piece and I'll be able to make it work with any title. Have faith in yourself that if you've done enough of practice pieces, that you'll be able to work with the title and work with different titles in order to do that. So that's what I've put there in terms of these areas of focus. How do we use the stimulus and the title when we look at stimulus material? Well, how do we make it work for us? One of the really important things with that is being really clear with the difference between the title and then the stimulus. A lot of students actually get this a little bit wrong. The title is the title. That's it. Okay. Underneath it, after it says you must use the title, it says and at least one piece of the stimulus material. Some students take that as, oh, well, I really like the picture, so I made that my title. No, that's not what we're there to do. The stimulus can't become your title. The stimulus is there to support you in writing a piece that is written in response to that title. So make sure you've practiced that in different ways. I'll give you a couple of strategies for that. Then, once we're focused on the title, we've got to have all the other ideas about our framework that come in behind it. Sometimes students neglect this a little bit because they focus instead on, well, I'm going to write a piece that's about the title and I'm going to write all these things that I've practiced that come across as really beautiful writing, and that'll be enough. The piece still has to say something. What that means is that essentially you should be viewing it as, okay, if say I'm doing protest, I've been thinking about protest and discussing it with my teachers and my peers, and I've been writing all these different pieces and reading mentor texts, and I've developed this way of thinking about protest and how it exists in a society and all these things, and I'm bringing all that knowledge and I'm showing it here on the day. That's what you need to be doing. And of course, you replace protest for country and personal journeys and play. You are there to show up and say, hey, I've developed all these really great things and insightful ideas about my framework of ideas, and I'm here to show them off. I show them off through the title, all right, and I make that work, and I use the stimulus to help me, sort of pour some petrol on them and make them bigger and brighter and beautiful, but I'm still there to show my thinking. This is a really particular message for those of you where sometimes I've had students that have asked, like, well, could I write on the other frameworks? Technically, you can. Technically, you can draw a picture of a sailboat on the exam. You can do anything, but is it a good idea to? Again, I'd lead it into that idea of being naive/arrogant in that, okay, even though I haven't even thought about, personal journeys all year, I'm just going to write on it because I really like the picture and the title. It's not going to be a really effective way of going about it. So, title. That middle line here is what I want you to focus on the most. Underneath the title, use the stimuli by running the idea through them. I'll explain to you what I mean in just a moment. In a visual sense, on the left there is what I often see a lot of students do. They have all these ideas going on in the background, and then they think, oh gosh, that's right, I meant to use the title. I'll just slap it on and just make it work. You've got to be agile with the title, meaning that you've got to be able to show up on the day and go, oh, excellent, I love that title. It leads me to make these decisions. That is how you start. It's not something to just be sort of thrown on at the end and hopefully it looks good. You want to be like the one on the right. The title should be at the core of every decision you go on to make. It should be leading you to think, oh, well, that's why I wrote that piece in that particular way. That's why I chose to structure it as a memory and then a reflection on the memory. Or that's why I chose to have it as a personal reflection. Or that's why I had a character that was a mother and a daughter, or whatever it might be. It has to be, because that would help me do a good job with the title. The title is at the core of absolutely everything there. Ideas we've mentioned, All right, what are you saying through the piece? What are you grappling with? What are you doing? Then, of course, you have to make the structural decisions. You have to show that you haven't just started writing and then you just kept writing the same thing over and over again. All right, be creative, be bold, write with clear decisions that are trying to achieve something. All right, and then of course at the end, you want to make it really nice to read and really beautiful. And this is where sometimes students get this a little bit back to front. This is how we want things to work. The title is the foundation of your piece. It's what everything else rests upon. It is absolutely must be there as the foundation. Then the ideas are there to come in behind the title, and then you choose a structure and features to your writing, and then you try and make it as beautiful and fluent as possible. What I'm seeing a lot of from students is their understanding of this task being upside down, where they think, hey, if I just go in there and write this beautiful piece, they'll just be blinded by how fantastic it is and I'll get a 10, all right, or I'll do really well on it. And then it's like at the end, oh yeah, the title will kind of get in there, and we're turning it upside down. So I'm not saying that none of these are important or that one of them is more important than the other. What I'm saying is that the title must be in there. And if we're putting it there as an afterthought and we're not really thinking about the ideas because we're too focused on, I'm going to pre-write the world's nicest piece about personal journeys or whatever it might be, then we get really heading off down the wrong path. So look to be really deliberate with what you're doing. When you write your draft and your practice pieces, if you lay out your 3 or 4 sheets of paper on a table, you should be able to point to all the decisions that you've made. Where you can fall into trouble with this is where you can audit your piece and you can realize that you're like, okay, what was I saying here? Oh, I was really engaging with the title. And then we get through halfway through the second page and you realize, I kind of haven't said anything else other than the title. And then your teacher might say, hey, what about this thing you did at the start of the third page? Like, how's that any different to what you've already said? And you're like, oh yeah, it's not really. I'm just kind of repeating myself with different words. That's why you need to be thinking, right, there on that third page, this is what I was trying to do. And then I did this, and then I made that decision. And then I was trying to bring in this idea, so I did this. You'll notice that I'm using the language of trying. This is what I was trying to do, all right? And that's fine. A lot of pieces, it always feels nice as an assessor or a teacher or someone helping out when you read the work of a student and it doesn't blow you over with how beautifully it's written or anything like that. And you can tell that this student maybe isn't the most gifted writer, but by gosh, they've made all these really deliberate decisions and they've really been purposeful in what they're trying to do. Maybe they've been a little too obvious from time to time, and that's all right because they're always moving towards it and you can reward it really quite highly for that. So making sure that you're always thinking about those types of things. A checklist that you can ask yourself, the way that I put this to students is to say that if you're looking at those 5 questions, if there's one or if there's more than one, if there's one or more of those questions that you can't answer confidently about your piece, it would suggest that there is a pretty major flaw with it, okay? Have you done something with the title? You must be able to answer that. Is my purpose clear? Have I explored ideas? What voice have I created here? What deliberate choices have I made? All right, these are things for you to be thinking about. And if you don't have an answer to one of them, it could be leading to us, having a few issues with that particular thing. So at the end here, I've included some sample material that I've written to help you guys out. This is not from previous year's exams. This is stuff that I've put together here. So obviously this one is for writing about country. This one is for protest. And then we have this one for personal journeys before we get to writing about play. Now, I'm just going to stay on play just because this is what I mean by running the stimulus through the title and how we can work with it. So for example, if we pretend like this is the 2025 exam, right? We show up and we've done writing about play. That's our thing. We turn to section B and it's like, right, I have to write a piece that is play, our escape from reality. So that must be what my piece is about. When I look at the first stimulus, we lose playfulness mentally before we lose it physically. Rather than just going, oh, okay, yeah, that's nice, run it through the title. What does it mean when we look at that in conjunction with the title? okay, so I lose playfulness mentally before I lose it physically. So this idea of, all right, that play was this escape from reality, this mental place where we could escape to and everything like that, and that we slowly lose that over time. We lose the ability to escape from reality. We live too much in the real world, and that it's not so much because we're not running. Some of us might be exercising every day, but we're still locked in this awful reality of jobs and responsibilities and terribly boring stuff. Notice how all those ideas come out when I put those two things together. I then use the visual, okay, of the assuming that's a grandmother with a granddaughter, this idea about play across ages, about video games that's been brought in, and all of a sudden maybe my ideas are leaning towards worlds that we can escape to in order to play, be it through a video game or the imagination that we get from that, or the activities we do with other people that allow us to escape into some other world. Notice how there's more than just one message from that picture. It could be about video games, could be about relationships, could be about imagination, could be about a million different things. And then here, intersection of achievement and enjoyment. Maybe I want to think about that with how that helps us escape and what it might be. But with all of the stimulus, we should be looking to run it through the title, okay? Not just saying, okay, yeah, I'm writing about the title and I'll hopefully get something from the stimulus. We have to use at least one piece of the stimulus, okay? A lot of students ask, how obvious do we have to make that? Which I totally get. Don't forget the hierarchy again. You must use the title. I've said that 700 times, okay? But then it says you must use at least one piece of the stimulus. Don't get too hung up on thinking, well, I must show and must make it so obvious to everyone that I've used the stimulus. The stimulus can be interpreted in millions of different ways. And if you've used it and it's helped you come up with something, then it's going to be evident there and easily seen by the assessor. When it comes to the title, sometimes students ask a really, really insightful question. They say but if I want to be really, clever and sophisticated and insightful, well, I'm not just going to say the title over and over again. So should I use the words from the title? Again, there's no rule saying that you should or you shouldn't. Where you want to be with this is that if you don't use the words from the title, or if you try to be super clever all the time and use all these different things and link to it in pretty, subtle ways throughout the whole thing, you might run the risk of not really engaging with what the title's saying. Then again, if you just talk about the title and you use the same language and repeat it, 20 times throughout your piece, well, then you're being too obvious and you're not being really insightful. So finding that balance, all right, if being really, really fancy with it, but never really mentioning the title is a 0, and using the title and the exact words all the time is a 10, I'd look to be about a 6. All right, I don't want to run that risk of not looking at the title too much, but at the same time, we don't want to just be overdoing it. So we're about finished here. Two more general tips. So if you do have some questions, get them ready. I'll throw over to that before we finish up. Quick tip number 7, use your reading time. We have mentioned this. Now down the bottom there, I've said 3 and 3 technique. This is something I used to do in the classroom all the time. Grab your phone when you're sitting at home, set the timer for 3 minutes, practice the skill of staring at 2 questions and having to make your decisions, think about what you're going to say and everything like that while you're staring at the questions. It is a skill. It is something that you'll be doing. It's the first 15 minutes of your exam. When your timer goes off, give yourself 3 minutes to write a plan. All right, see how you go with that. The 9 and 3 technique is the same as above, but doing it for the argument analysis. Spend 9 minutes reading the argument analysis, 3 minutes to write a plan. If you get used to doing it like that, what that all adds up to in the end is 3 minutes reading your section A question, 3 minutes reading your section B, 9 minutes reading your section C. There's your 15 minutes of reading time. If you spend 3 minutes writing a plan for each of them, there's your first 9 minutes of your writing time. That could be a way of you getting yourself in the mode and sort of simulating that exam experience. 1 hour blocks. I've left this one till last because it is the absolute most important. We have the advantage in English of knowing what the exam will look like. We don't know the details, but we know that if we have been studying a text, we know there'll be 2 questions on there about that text. So therefore, if I can challenge myself to write 15 essays in the next 6 weeks about that text, well, then there's not a whole lot they can ask me on that exam that I wouldn't have covered if I'm doing 15 different questions. Same thing with the stimulus material, and same thing like we spent all that time talking about with the Section C material. So 1 hour blocks are also great because they're manageable. Rather than going home with a big thick textbook and going, oh, I've got to do chapter 8 or I've got to revise these notes and all this sort of stuff, you can go home and say, right, I'm going to do the 2021 Section C piece. I've printed it out. Cool. I've given myself 9 minutes to read it, 3 minutes to write a quick annotation. I now set the timer on my phone for an hour. I slide the phone out of the room or put it on the other side of the room, press start, and I start writing, and I don't stop until that alarm goes off. What you're training yourself to do there is to write into these timed conditions and getting yourself ready for it. It's also motivating when we have close-ended study. If I'm sitting there and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm not feeling really up for it, I can say to myself, nah, start this, set the timer, and if it's 5:05 by the time I start, what that means is that I know that at 6:05, I'm done, I'm finished, and I'm not going to do anything else more with it. That's much more motivating than being, oh gosh, I'm going to start, looking at these notes and I don't know when I'll stop. The next bit of advice for that, if you're really going to switch on for that type of study, make sure you switch off as well. I always get a little bit worried when students say things like, yeah, I was kind of watching Netflix and I had a friend over, but I was looking at quotes on like flashcards and stuff. That's not really effective, study for English. Also, when you're trying to, sort of have Netflix on and have your phone and do your study with other people around that you're sort of kind of chatting to, but you're eating chips and doing all this, you're not relaxing and you're also not studying, okay? So you want to be doing one or the other. So there's nothing wrong with, after you've done, say, a really solid 1 hour of work, or even, say, 2 hours, where you put two pieces together in the 2 hours, and then get the heck away from the work for the next 5 hours. Go and do something that you enjoy doing physically or, with people or whatever it might be. Be on or be off, but don't kid yourself into just sort of sitting at a desk doing nothing and not relaxing, nor having a really good sense of studying and getting better. So these next 41 days, thanks everyone for coming along tonight. Challenge yourself for these next 41 days. What can you do every day that helps you get a little bit better? When are you going to start writing these practice pieces? What plan do you have for getting through them? All right. How have you got a program set up? Are you going to do 1 hour pieces? Are you going to do 2 hour pieces? How are you going to reward yourself? All right. And last of all, enjoy it. You're in a really unique situation, all right, where you are, getting ready for your final high school exams. Don't, sort of lose sight of that by being, too worried about everything or stressed about everything to not be able to enjoy it there. So I'm going to take a look back at the comments. Okay. I'm looking back through. I'm not seeing a whole lot in terms of questions, and that's fine. If you want to ask a question, now would be the time to do it. Okay. If I'm given 2 images in the section C, do I have to analyze both? Again, with have to. You don't have to. It'd be a very good idea to do so, though. By not doing it, it would be like not analysing one of the major arguments that's there. It's not a quantitative thing, all right? If you do a really thorough job of analysing everything, an assessor's not going to read and go, oh, but they didn't analyse this one particular thing that I noticed, so therefore it's terrible. But with the picture's a big prominent thing and it's a part of it. So yes, you should be analysing both, all right? Really, really important that we do that. Thank you for your lesson. You are welcome, Gabe. It's nice to see a lot of love out there. That's good. Hey, the English Lab, what is your favourite Sunset Boulevard quote? Well, I don't really know what my favourite is. I know what my least favourite is the Betty Schaefer, oh, they didn't like my nose. Turns out they didn't like my acting. Students write that and they include like the whole damn scene every time. Refer to it, talk about how Betty was rejected by Hollywood and how it shaped her and how it was focused on her image and all that. Don't give me the entire scene. I read it every year and it drives me bananas. Jack says, this is proper good advice. Sorby says, thank you, Mr. English. You are welcome. As we come to the denouement of this seminar, that's good. Finn, I have a question. I didn't like that we studied Sunset Boulevard on my trial exam. I wrote how Skibbity Toilet shows how Hollywood is a land. All right, nice. It might be bad, might not be. Appreciate it. That's good. You guys are welcome. For those saying thank you. What are your thoughts on hybrid forms in Part B, like half monologue, half narrative? Yeah, nice. Good question. If it helps serve a purpose, fantastic. But don't use certain structures for the sake of just using them because they might be great. I know of students that go, oh, I start with this little story, and they write like a page-long story. But if it has nothing to do with the title and nothing to do with anything else, but you just put it in there because you think it looks cool, and I'm not saying that's what you do, then you've got to sort of qualify how that works. Sometimes a half monologue, half narrative is going to work really, really well because you can set a bit of a scene. Sometimes people who do things like, personal journeys, they might start with a really short anecdote about something that happened to them as a child, and then they write a reflection on what it taught them. Awesome. Really fantastic way of being able to use structure to really get some ideas across. Just make sure that if it's working for you, then it works. I know that sounds really simple, but bottom line, don't just do it because you think it's a good idea. Do it because you know what it's achieving. Okay? Who's My Sunset Boulevard character? Betty Schaefer by a mile. Either that or the guy who gives him the Vicunian jacket. Thank you so much for your tips. You are more than welcome. What section should I do first and last? Where can I find practice exams? So if you go back to the start of this stream, Mike, we cover everything about which sections to do first. It's in the first 10 minutes of this video that we've started here. Where can you find practice exams? Of course, you've got all the old VCAR ones. You can ask your school for which ones they may have purchased as well. I hear that the English Lab ones are really, really good if you want to ask your school to make a purchase there. I still haven't learnt TEAL nor AAL structure. Can I help you with that? I reckon a teacher will be able to do a really good job with that, and they know you well enough to be able to give you that really solid advice. We've got hearts here. Thank you, Ben. Do I listen to Hollis? I don't know what that is. How do you choose which quotes to memorize? The way to memorize quotes is to be writing lots of essays and planning by using lots of different quotes throughout there. So one of the supports that you might want to give yourself is that, say, the first 3 practice essays that you write, if you write them in the next week and a half, do it with, a quote bank or your notes and that stuff there. Obviously, you're not going to have that in the exam, but you're going to have learned those things by incorporating them there as part of it. So I wouldn't be going in thinking, right, I've just got to have 10 quotes that I memorize. You should have a good set of quotes and evidence you can use from the text that's going to come up no matter what the question is. What form do you think is best for Section B? Whatever the title leads you to do. My main advice for each of these things: with a personal journey, don't just tell me a nice story. The story has to have meaning. Nor think that you have to write an entire narrative, that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Sometimes just a moment in time is a fantastic way to talk about what's learned in a journey. If you're writing about protest, please remember to don't just write a protest. You've got to write about protest, not just your protest. Where are we going now? What form do I think is the best? You have to analyze both visuals. Yes, good idea to do so. Make sure that you do. Guess this is goodbye. I've stayed back in year 12 for 4 years. I think you're ready. Hopefully that works well for you. Okay, you went into depth in the image because it related more to my analysis and left the other. Would that be risky? Might be a little risky, but I'd just look to use both. At the end of the day, if you've done a really thorough job with all the arguments and you've really taken one of the visuals, to a really, great place with everything that you found in it. Look, it'd be pretty rough if someone went, oh, they didn't mention the other picture, but there are just only the 2 pictures. Maybe finding something you can mention about it would be good. But there is no technical thing where, oh, this was a 9 out of 10, but it didn't look at the second picture, therefore it's a 6. It's not how it works. So yeah, if you want to do that, that would be great. Okay. Do you think the radio is a symbol in Rainbow's End? Oh yeah, absolutely. It's another world, and it's a way that they understand how the world is being communicated to them, particularly through a dominant culture. Absolutely. Will the Section C pieces be less complex from the old study design? No, they're still really, really good. and really useful. So, yeah, use them. Any decent quotes you can recommend for flames? I don't know. Anything that helps you say something really great about the text. Joe Gillis is in the chat. That's nice. Okay. I hate that guy. Thank you for your kind words. Everyone in the chat. Will the video stay up after the stream ends? Yep, it should do. I think even last year's videos are still up there if you go to the English Lab channel. If you can jump on there and hit subscribe and do all that sort of stuff, that'd be really helpful. How important is proofreading your pieces? If it's going to come to at the expense of you actually writing more effective content, well then, it maybe not be really worth it. But always, of course, good idea to be as clear as possible with it. But in saying that, assessors know that this is first draft writing. So if you've written something that's really good or really solid for 2.5 pages and you make a little slip in one sentence, it's not going to be the thing that ruins your entire piece. So, being as clear as possible, and proofreading is great if you've got the time, but don't think that will be the huge difference if there's a spelling mistake or something to do with your syntax or something there. Okay, the video will stay up. Tarsine, I hope you got my message there when I was talking about if you left the other one out, would it be risky? It might be a little bit risky, but yeah, just do both and you'll be fine. But don't think that you have to do plenty on the second one. Everyone's got a piece in your heart. That's nice. I'll leave it to you. How much English should we do when we finish school and graduated? As much as you need to. It'll help you think and do a lot of stuff. Should you speak to your other English teachers? Best to speak to just your English teacher and figure your way out with that. If you do have some serious issues, maybe speak to your coordinators about how you can do that and get the feedback that you need. So from earlier, do you recommend utilising the first 9 minutes of writing time planning? Well, yeah, that could be a way of doing it. That's the way that I'd do it. If that's a way that you think it'd work for you, then by all means do it. I'm only thinking about that because I want to be thinking about what I'm going to be like 1 hour and 2 hours into the exam. Should I allocate time to proofread? Yep, just commented on that there before. That was, if you can, that's great to proofread, and that would be fine. Looks like that is just about the end of it. So Jack Dunstone is a demon at downball. That's good to hear. Glad to know. Guys, thank you for getting involved with this. These things are really, really fun. I enjoy doing them each year. Please take a look through the rest of the YouTube channel, and hit like on a couple of videos, comment on a few things so that I can help you out with those. Thanks very much for coming. Enjoy these next 41 days. Get stuck into writing some practice pieces, and good luck. Thanks for coming along.